inmate holding capacity of the correctional centers themselves have been exhausted twice or thrice. You go to Jos prison, which is supposed to hold 900 inmates. He is holding over 3,000. There has been no expansion. There has been no new cells built.
Still the same.
Still the same structure built by the colonial administration in the 20s. And so, what do you expect? And the facilities were built in response to the crime profile of those times.
Colonial times.
Yeah, colonial times. Now, Nigerians have transcended above that.
Now we'll begin today's conversation taking our quote from Victor Hugo, a French poet, novelist, essayist, playwright, and dramatist of the Romantic movement. He once said, "He who opens a school door closes a prison." All right, let's take our second quote. And this one is from Ho Chi Minh, a Vietnamese revolutionary and politician. He served as Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam from 1945 to 1955 and President from 1945 until his death in 1969. He once said, "When the prison doors are opened, the real dragon will fly out." Absolutely spot on, you say. Now we'll take our last quote, and this one is from Dwight Eisenhower, an American military officer and statesman who served as the 34th President of the United States from 1953 to 1961. During the World War II, he served as Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe and achieved the 5-star rank of General of the Army. He once said, "If you want total security, go to the prison. There you are fed, clothed, given medical care, and so on. The only thing lacking is freedom." All right, then let's see how all of this relates to what we will be discussing today. Warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, the Nigerian Correctional Service is statutorily expected to take into lawful custody all those duly certified to be so kept by courts of competent jurisdiction, produce suspects and other prisoners in courts as and when due, identify the causes of their antisocial disposition, set in motion mechanisms for their training and reform so as to return them to the society as law-abiding citizens, discharge and administer prison farms and industries for this purpose, and in the process generate revenue for the government. Well, that's in the books, but in reality, how far has the Nigerian Correctional Services been able to meet up or live up to these expectations and objectives? Well, we're just about to find out from our guest, Barrister Solomon Dalung. He's the former Minister, Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports. Barrister Solomon Dalung also joined the Nigerian Prison Service as a prison assistant in 1982, where he rose to the rank of the Assistant Inspector of Prisons. In 1991, while still in the prison service, he enrolled to the law program of the University of Jos to obtain the Bachelor of Law degree, which he obtained in the year 2000. Following his training as an attorney at the University of Jos and the Nigerian Law School, he was moved to the legal department at Prison Headquarters, Abuja in 2004, where he served as legal officer 2, but he retired the same year from the prison services. We're going to meet him in just a moment because we have a lot to discuss on today's show. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we have our guest. He is Barrister Solomon Dalung. He is a former legal officer too at the Nigerian Prison Services. He's also a former minister, Youth and Sports at the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports, and he is a politician. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and viewers, you're welcome.
Great to have you again. All right, now let's talk about the Nigerian Prison Service, or the Nigerian Correctional Service, as it is called now. Let's talk about the state of our correctional centers, formerly the Nigerian Prison Service, where you served in various departments from 1982 till 2004, your retirement in 2004. Now, how will you describe the state of our correctional centers? Do they really depict the name that they carry?
Certainly not. And I think it's been like that. When I joined the services as a young man in 1982, I had options of that joining the police, but I rejected it because of image. The image of the police as a brutal institution. So as a young person, that image, I couldn't fit into it. I wanted to join the army, but again, too, I look at myself and I said, I'm a critical thinker. So if I join the army, just a dream of a coup, I will be arrested among the coup plotters. So that wasn't a good place for me to go. So I opted for the correctional service, the Nigerian Prison Service, which is the correctional services. And when you take an overview of the system as it were, it wasn't at all impressive. It doesn't depict the picture of a reformed institution. Rather, it looks somehow penal because, I mean, the inmates were subjected to conditions that were punitive. And the staff welfare was next to nothing. So it was more or less like a neglected institution. It only becomes necessary when you have maybe high-profile criminals now being ferried to the prisons. You have the presence of heavy security, attention is given to it, or when you have massed escape of inmates, especially from the highly concentrated criminal centers like the maximum security or the convict prison as it were then. Once you have an outbreak in such places, the society is panicked and there is a general alarm. But it has been like that. There was only one man who incidentally joined the prison service from the rank and became the Controller General. Unfortunately, he is not lettered, but he became the best Controller General of the prisons because the reforms and the transformation that led to the current correctional service we have were initiated by him.
Okay.
Abokegu. He was from Nasarawa State. An unlettered person. He brought fundamental reforms. As at the time he became Controller General, he was joining the military regime. So the military challenged him about the low productive aspect of the service. And he replied them. He said, well, the prison service, as it were, emanated from Britain. And it's a royal institution, well catered for, under the office of the crown. It's well catered, it's an holistic institution. But in Nigeria, it's not the same. So when you copy something and you just copy the name.
You don't copyright.
Yeah, you copy the name and you don't copy the privileges and responsibilities. Then it will not work. So he was now given the opportunity to embark on reforms, and he recommended the recruitment, because then it was predominantly either primary school or secondary school leavers. There were a few graduates. So the issue of employment of graduates in mass came in.
Okay.
And then there was a transfer of manpower from other government departments like teachers, welfare officers, sociologists. They are now brought in mass into the service. But that translated to nothing. It's still the same. If you go to just prison, the perimeter walls are just painted. No, they still remain as they were as far back as in 1920s when the prison was established. It's the same perimeter wall. The cells are the same. In fact, if you go into the prison, the gutters were constructed by the colonial administration. They are only just being maintained, not properly even maintained. The welfare of the prison officers, I mean, oh my God, if there are people who are serving the country selflessly are the prison officers. Because the prisoners that are brought, government does not provide sufficient funding for their welfare. So from your pocket, you cater for their needs. They are human beings, and when they are brought into prison, you form relationship. You sympathize with their situation. You try as an officer to see that, I mean, from their stories, you could influence their character to a positive change. This create bonds and relationship. And if they are in need of anything for their welfare, maybe the soap to wash their clothes, sometimes they don't have what to wear, we improvise from the meager salaries we were paid.
Okay.
So the system is still the same. And the prison officers are the most neglected institution as far as this country is concerned. The other ones are no more paid again.
All right, then we'll still come back to the welfare. Now, the correctional centers, just as the name implies, are supposed to be a correctional or rehabilitation facility to correct social vices that is growing all over the country. But as it is, there's no telling if that facility is able to live up to those expectations. Now, some of the correctional centers, rehabilitation or correctional processes or activities that they do, we just only recently noticed that pageantry or cooking competition was among it, which a lot of people said they don't even know that all those kind of things exist. So what are the processes that they use to rehabilitate or correct these social vices, especially for people? And even when, take for instance the video of the pageantry that went on recently, and yet one of the inmates is still, the case is still on trial, and you had such pageantry, such pomp and pageantry exhibition. Is that part of the process of rehabilitation, or is just new?
Well, the correctional institution has so many departments for rehabilitation and reformation. There are skills and vocational departments established all over, like carpentry, even schools. There are schools, tailoring, cooking itself. Almost every aspect of the vocational skills acquired outside are available. When we joined the services, I mean, the tools were provided. Agriculture itself. They have farms where they are trained into modernized farming, with mechanized farming rather. So these were part of the system. But because of the neglect, the tools that they use now are no more there. And if you go into the correctional service, you will be amazed at the skill you find there. In fact, music, we have a band, musical band.
Really?
Yeah. When I celebrated my birthday as a minister in Just Prison in 2018, it was the Image musical band that played And it was touching. The skills that were displayed there were amazing. So these things exist.
Okay.
What is novel to me is the pageantry, which throughout my service year was not part of the vocational skills
Okay.
embedded in the reformation process. But let me quickly comment that the pageantry that took place here is part of the rehabilitation process. But it shouldn't have involved an awaiting trial inmate.
Okay.
Because involving an awaiting trial inmate in such a process prejudice the trial itself. Because she's standing trial. So allowing her or allowing women who are awaiting trial to participate will definitely be subjudice to the judicial process she is undergoing. So she shouldn't have in the first place participated. If it were, it should have been convicted inmates. Because they are now the ones that their status have been determined, and the reformation or rehabilitation starts with them. But for an awaiting trial convict, no decision has been made. She could be freed. So why are you bringing her?
Exposing.
Just bringing her to benefit the rehabilitation and reformation process, which is meant for convicted persons. Okay. So I think something fundamentally went wrong.
Okay.
Or there is a deliberate attempt to sabotage the trial that is ongoing, because the department is not deficient of very sound lawyers. And so this process should have been subjected to the advice of the legal department and before embarking on, because it's novel. Okay. But if this was not done and it went to this state, I think my opinion, my take will be that it's a national embarrassment, because the country has been embarrassed, the judicial process has been ridiculed, because there is no judgment now that will be returned that the credibility of it will not be challenged by the consciences of many.
All right then. So now, how about security of the Nigerian Correctional Service and its environment? Why do you have so many jailbreaks recorded recently, even arsons? And what exactly is the government, or whether from the national or the subnational level, not doing right or doing wrong to warrant this wanton attack that our correctional centers have experienced even in the recent past?
It's just the ostrich mentality of our leaders. Because we cannot pretend that with the rising sophisticated crime profile in the society, we will not expect that security at the reception end be beefed up. But like I told you, it's just the attitude of our leaders to this particular institution.
Okay.
You know, the prison service and even the prison officers are so much hated by even the society itself. It's only those who have gone to prison that loved the prison officers, because they certainly discover that they are so humane, they are very kind people. I mean, sometimes somebody is ferried from the police station or from any of the security law enforcement agencies. So sometimes he may be arrested with so much money. He will be detained in those facilities. He will spend his money when he has nothing That is when they will now take him to court and bring him to prison. It is the prison officer that will take care of him. And these are the people that are not even properly catered for, neglected by government. Nobody talks about them. You only remember prison when you have high-profile inmates to talk to them. Oh, they exist. You never hear the government discuss even at the level of policy. You don't. You don't even hear them making the news. Even within the government policies, you don't. Nobody talks about them. You only hear the news of, oh, a former governor has been taken to so and so prison. That's the news. Oh, a dangerous criminal is before the court, so you see them. So their visibility is reduced when there is a problem. The prison service is equivalent to what my people call in the village, that a bad man is only needed on the day of a dirty job. So they are like that. So it is this attitude of ostrich mentality of leadership that led to neglecting the system, and we have very sophisticated terrorists now being taken to prison. And nobody ever imagined that, okay, much should be done to protect the prisons. If you go to the police station, you see barricade built in response to terrorist attack. If you go to DSS, you see sophisticated gadgets and vehicles paraded outside. But take a visit to the correctional services. Some of them you can reverse with your vehicle and come and push the door. So, jailbreak for a society that is, the leaders live in ostrich mentalities. Jailbreak will remain music, Makossa music, that will be played every day. It's not yet over because no concrete step has been taken. The manpower requirement of the prison, the correctional services is far, far, far low below. The image holding capacity of the correctional centers themselves have been exhausted twice or thrice. You go to Jos prison, which is supposed to hold 900 inmates, is holding over 3,000. There has been no expansion. There has been no new cells built.
Still the same.
Still the same structure built by the colonial administration in the 20s.
Oh, wow.
And so, what do you expect? And the facilities were built in response to the crime profile of those times.
Colonial times.
Yeah, colonial times. Now, Nigerians have transcended above that. You have armed robbery now. You have kidnappers. You have banditry.
Terrorists.
You have terrorists. Yet the facilities are to respond to the crime character of those days, where it is either housebreaking and theft or picking pockets. So the system cannot respond to, the crime profile. And so jailbreak becomes very easy. Like what happened in Jos prison. They just overran the officers. If you see how they broke into the prison, it was just like walking with a reverse and pushing the door and going in. Very cheap. We have the armed squad which was introduced. The armed squad, the personnel is too low. It can't contain. There were about 2 or 3 officers on duty bearing arms on that day. And the terrorists that came overpowered them. And then one other thing, which is now the negative attitude on the side of the correctional officers, is the compromise attitude. Because those who attacked Jos prison definitely had communication with the inmates inside.
Inside, okay.
Now, there is a very serious offense in the correctional service, which is trafficking. Trafficking is allowing anything prohibited by law to be accessed by an inmate. This includes cigarette, Indian hemp, knives, dangerous weapons. Phone now, telephone is prohibited. But if you go inside the correctional service with the detention of high-profile politicians, they bribe their ways, they corrupt these officers, and phones have been allowed sometimes. They make calls from their cells to their families. If this is even going to be allowed, the law is that such phone calls must be made in the presence of prison or correctional officers and a welfare officer, and the communication must be monitored. So it will be on a speaker. But you know, there's some of these people who have been convicted for misappropriating billions. You know, they can buy their ways. They can corrupt easily. In fact, if you allow them by the gate of heaven, they will infect the angels. So this is one of the very, very bad attitude that is obtainable within the rank and file of the officer. So the rogue elements within the system have compromised the security. So they facilitate easy attack, because it cannot be possible for anybody to launch an attack from outside without a well-coordinated communication from within. The prison has two gates. It has the inner gate and the outer gate. Now, the outer gate is accessible easily for receiving people. The inner gate, before you pass through, you must have passed the litmus test of the security arrangement before you are allowed into the prison. Now, by 10 in the night, the key to the inner gate is taken away. It doesn't sleep in the prison. It's taken away to a safe destination. It is only returned in the morning, meaning that those who are inside cannot be able to have access to outside until 6 a.m. in the morning. And that is what is called lock-up time. Lock-up time is the final time which the prison is locked. Every prisoner will go to his cell. The cells are locked. The keys are returned to a safe at the gate. And that safe, the key to it, is also taken away alongside the key to the inner gate when the officer responsible for such responsibility is available. So it's a very secure system. But for such jailbreaks to happen, the rogue elements compromise. And I think if they do not fish it out,
it will continue
at an escalated scale.
Oh, wow. That's quite sad. All right, before we leave this topic and go to other discussions, now, what are the supposed program failure that the government implemented, especially with the reforms that could have caused all of this breakdown that you complained about? Or do we only leave it at the lack of interest on the part of the government in terms of the prison affairs? And what steps can be taken to correct this anomaly? Very quickly.
The government had only succeeded in changing the name, and with a very robust policy on papers. None of the policy that has been initiated is implemented. None. The only thing is the name. Even the uniform, the badge of the officers have not been changed. That is to tell you that nothing has happened. They are still carrying the old badge of the Nigerian Prison Service. The names were only the one in pen, they have changed it. They've not changed the apparel of officers to be commensurate with the reforms. The reforms is the same attitude of government. Oh, a social policy has taken place, has been approved. It has not even been funded. So we're only made to believe that it has happened, and we are blaming the officers for the jailbreaks. But in real truth, nothing has happened. And you see, if we must succeed in transforming that particular institution. It's not a place that you can just pick anybody and send there. No. It is a place that the head must have passion.
Okay.
He must be passionate about that job. It's not that he's there because of the status, he wants to make money. No. I mean, the next officer who did very well is late Ibrahim Jelma, who was killed by the terrorists in Azre. He was a very fine officer who joined as a young officer in 1976 as a graduate. And he did wonderfully well when he became the CG. So, because he was a very passionate officer about the job. Okay. So once you make the appointment political and you force people there to go and award prison contracts to their girlfriends and committee of concubines, the system will remain the same.
All right, then let's go on this quick break. And when we return, we will expand this conversation a little bit further. I will see you shortly. Don't move a muscle. Does all of this statements hit the polity, especially for those who has a lot of followers? That's one. And then on the other hand, what personally, what category do you fall in? Do you fall in the people in the category of people who would say, regardless of whoever becomes the president, we are here and we are going to build Nigeria? Or do you fall among the category that have called themselves the Japa movement?
Well, I cannot be dragged into any of those groups you are making reference to, because I expect that elders should not make such discouraging statements, because it can mislead so many young people and it can set a very dangerous precedent. We look up to them as elders to guide us right and unite this country. So profiling is a very dangerous political attitude that can destroy any country.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you've just joined us, you've missed quite a lot because we've talked about quite a lot of things. We've talked about the Nigerian prisons, but now we will divert a little bit as we still have our guest. He is Barrister Solomon Dalung, former minister, Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports, and he's also a politician. He was once an officer at the Nigerian Prison Service, now the Nigerian Correctional Service. Now let's divert a little bit and talk about the amended Electoral Act. What are your take on the newly passed electoral law? How did the news of the president's assent to the bill and other back and forth that that was experienced around it, how did it come to you?
Well, I have to congratulate the president that finally he was able to navigate the very turbulent pressure of the diverse political interests about the electoral bill. But I would have preferred the first electoral bill, which he rejected.
Because, oh, really? How so?
Yeah, because I believe that the political parties, for us to secure this, our democracy, the political parties should use the direct primaries. Because internal democracy, which is the foundation of democracy itself, had collapsed in all the political parties. And therefore, the only safeguard would have been the use of direct primaries, where a larger number of members of the parties participate in the choice of candidates. And a better choice of candidate offers a better chance for leadership.
Okay. So
that was not to materialize. He has signed. There are some innovations in this one that he has signed. I mean, the electronic transmission of results, even though Section 8412 has been struck down by the court, we don't know whether those who lost will still proceed to the Court of Appeal. So we don't know until when that is finally resolved. But I think, too, that provisions frowns at the constitutional provision of the law, because the Constitution, I think Section 1.2 provides that any law that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is void to the level of the inconsistency. So when you have a legislation enacted by the National Assembly that tend to be in conflict with the Constitution, of course, that particular provision will have to go. So we have a brand new Electoral Act. The political parties have also been given a time to which they will produce their candidate from the INEC timetable. I think it's a healthy development to democracy, but we will not get the best yet because Nigerians will not be offered the opportunity to select the best candidates by the political parties.
Okay.
The political parties have monetized the process of the choice of candidates through this delegate system. Giving them the alternative in the Electoral Act is nonsensical.
Okay, so we'll come to some of the clauses on the Electoral Act. Now, for the electoral law, some people believe that signing that bill into law has brought back the reputation of Nigeria's electoral system, because you remember those days when INEC is still they're still voting, and then in some other parts of the country results are already announced. So some people believe that this new electoral law will actually ruin that process. Do you share some thoughts?
No, yeah, it will address that political malady, but it has not solved the problem. It is also that you have a problem with the foundation of a building, and if the building is also roofing, is leaking, and then you go to change the roof, you have not addressed the problem. The building is still not viable or not strong because it will collapse. Unless and until internal democracy is entrenched in the political parties, our democracy will continue to stagger and it may end up collapsing. So no any option to internal democracy. The choice of good leadership begins with the choice of candidates. So if it is monetized and serving convicts could buy delegates and be elected and be selected to contest election, what has changed? What only changed is that the same bad process has one element killed for the same set of people. So there is nothing to celebrate. The only thing we would have celebrated is when we have a clean process where internal democracy is entrenched. The election of party leaders is democratically, not writing of names by governors in their offices. Some of the party chairmen that were selected in government houses, we even don't know them. So what are we celebrating? And these are the people that will produce candidates. So the candidates will be, it's a monetized system. So there is the highest bidder that now will be nominated by the political parties. And so when they become leaders, will you prevent them from recouping their monies? So what are we celebrating from the Electoral Act?
All right, then. So now let's talk about the Contentious Clause. That's it's section 84, subsection 12, which actually talks about government appointees and political parties. And then on the other hand, you have a court ruling that trashed it in Umahia, that's in Abia State. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that allowing a delegate college to be overpopulated by appointees and serving government officials is anti-democratic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my thinking. Because if you look at the attitude of the governors early this year, they have increased their special assistants and special advisors to about 200. There are some that have 500. Some even have up to 1,000. All these are done in preparation of giving them leverage to choose who they will take the ticket. And if we are talking about democracy, nobody should participate in the process of producing a leader that is not democratically elected. So I think that section is to safeguard this. But if that section is lost through the judicial process, then what we will have done is that the Electoral Act would have been a beautifully plaited hair on a lice-infected head.
Oh, wow. Quite sad. All right, now on the 22nd of February 2022, yourself, Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso, Elder Statesman Buba Galadima, Senator Suleiman Hankui, Senator Rufai Hanga, and some other eminent Nigerians, too numerous to mention at the moment, formed a third force in a bid to to wrestle power actually from APC and PDP in 2023 elections. That's the National Movement, TNM. Talk to us about TNM.
Well, the National Movement is one of the many other coalition movements that are ongoing, all in preparation of trying to address this malignant political attitude. That is the collapse of internal democracy within our party politics. So this in the National Movement and other associations of the third force ongoing. We looked at, the fate of democracy. And we felt democracy has to be rescued. And in rescuing democracy, you have to rally around forces that are like-minded to come together so that we'll form a coalition that will ultimately restore power and rescue democracy. Just like I've been talking about the collapse of internal democracy, the national movements became eminent because of this. Okay. Most political actors are casualties of the collapse of internal democracy. They form political parties that are either in government or are already out in government. And then you have them becoming strangers to their own political party because of power play, where the political parties now are being owned as personal enterprises of people living in government houses. So that actually is it. But the national movement had actually lost it because it became personalized.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it became so personalized as if it's a presidential campaign organization. So some of us felt, no, that wasn't the initial concept.
Okay.
We believe that if we are going to right the wrong of the collapse of internal democracy, that is going in search of justice, he should come with clean hands.
Okay.
So we should be very, very fair and just in whatever we are doing. It should not be about the ambition of one person. There should be a plain level ground for all those who are interested and a transparent selection process must emerge so that you have, a credible candidate that is acceptable. But when I noticed that it's more or less like a campaign organization, because I had Kwankwaso has left the national movement and has gone to join another political party. But there are coalition talks going on with the other political associations.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ongoing. And we are coalescing into what is known as a Rainbow Coalition. Now, the Rainbow Coalition is a third force of political association that will fill in candidates in all the elections. But where there is area of strength of a political party in the coalition, all members of the coalition will support that candidate. Okay. So if a member of the House of Representatives belongs to any of the parties in the coalition, and that party is stronger there, all the parties in the coalition will only support that candidate.
Okay.
And they will not feel any other candidate to challenge him. So that is the terminal thought now of the national movement.
Okay, now, so taking a cue from where you just landed and what you said, now, it has been reported that the national movement has now merged with the new Nigeria's People's Party, that's NNPP. So is the NNPP now the God-ordained party for the achievement of the ideologies that the national movement had? That's one. There are two questions, and I'd like you to take them in one breath. And if you recall, in 2013, a similar thing happened that led to the formation of APC due to, you had some people who felt that they were disgruntled, came out from other parties to join APC and now made it a mega party. Now, do you think that similar thing is happening at the moment?
No, it's completely a different political initiative. Well, the Konkoso group in the national movement had headed for the NNPP, like I said earlier on. So that is in pursuance of his political, presidential ambition. But other members of the national movement who think differently and think that it's not about ambition, but it's about democracy, are still intact in the
So does it mean that some of these eminent Nigerians who were with the TNM, now with NNPP, they never saw that they had two minds, or they didn't have the ideologies that you all had collectively before you had the TNM?
The ideology is sacrosanct. Ambition now is what distinguishes it.
Okay.
We're still with the ideology of rescuing democracy. That's sacrosanct. But the ambition of an individual is different from the ideology. So you have to separate the two. And now, back to your second question, which is what actually is that you said? Second question.
I asked about if this same movement is what you see that happened during the 2030 when it had APC now becoming a mega party.
Yeah, it's different because, I mean, that was a merger. Political parties merging, putting down their...
But NNPP also has a merger of different parties, movements.
No, it's not a merger, it's fusion. A merger is that the political party must drop its certificate of registration to form a new political party. So NPP is having a fusion as political association coming into a political party for the purpose of presenting candidates. But they still retain their identity as political parties. So it's unique.
Okay. All right, so now let's move on and looking at the long queue of candidates who have thrown their hat into the ring with regards to the 2023 presidential elections. I'm sure that you've seen them all, if not all, at least you've seen the contenders and maybe the pretenders and those who have been pressured or coerced to vie for elections. Now, with all of these candidates that are already there, who personally do you see or think that is the best qualified, that would bring Nigeria out of the brink and then give them that breath of fresh air that they have longed for?
Yeah, as a politician, I wouldn't pick one person out of the...
is the fear of being eliminated?
Numerous people that had indicated interest, because you still have the processes of primaries that will determine who picked the ticket. Now, if we have those that the political parties are presenting, we can now be able to tell Nigerians, look, out of this is much, much better. So
presently you don't have any particular person
But I
blessing.
can only enumerate my thoughts about the next president of this country. The next president of this country should be a very young person who should be, from 60 below, because the job of a president of this country is too energetic, and it's also mentally taxing. It requires taking decisions, hard decisions. And looking at where the country is now today, we needed somebody who will inspire hope and confidence and drive the country into unity.
Okay.
And that can be done by a young man who is patriotic, who is intelligent, detribalized Nigerian, who has a very good knowledge of the country and its people, who is not a fanatic, a religious fanatic or a bigot.
And you're not going to put a face or name to it?
No, for now. Yeah, for now. That should be. And I believe also that power should be zoned to the southern part of this country. I'm not pretentious about it, because looking at how divisive the country is, we will need to bring the country together. Ignoring the political sensibilities of Nigerians will be hypocritical to the very delicate situation we have on our hands. So we will need to zone power to the south after power residing in the north for 8 years. That's my thinking.
But then a lot of people have actually put their thoughts on zoning. And then they say that, or maybe, let me ask you now, don't you think that zoning will actually make it difficult for us to produce the best candidate that can take Nigeria and Nigerians to that promised land?
It cannot, because the best that you are talking about can be found in the north or in the south. Nigeria is not deficient of leadership. The zoning is because we are a multicultural and a highly diverse nation. And we're not deficient in anything. We don't have leadership deficit. So in order to narrow the space of rivalry and unhealthy competition, and then to take into consideration our peculiarity, zoning has solved some of these problems in the past. And we're still at the precipice of what led to the introduction of zoning. So we cannot ignore it this time. But when we transformed our leadership to a particular stage, we can dispense with it.
Okay.
But as it is now, cries of marginalization still exist within the polity, and you cannot ignore it. Because there are others that felt, we've not been able to produce our own. Now, what led to zoning in the first place is injustice. And so if we have not cured injustice up till today, then zoning remains very, very relevant. Until when injustice is inoculated, when we vaccinate our leaders against injustice and they treat Nigerians fairly, appointments are not based on looking at your face or listening to your tongue. Once a Nigerian is treated fairly and justly, nobody will talk about zoning. So it's injustice that is fanning the embers of zoning. So those who are agitating against zoning should develop a vaccine for injustice.
All right, then recently, last weekend, we saw some politicians. We had Chief Bode George, who said if a particular politician, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if he becomes president, he is going to retire to another country. And then we've heard that happen in 2015, where he also made same statement saying if President Muhammadu Buhari becomes the president, he's going to retire back to his farm. And they have a lot of people who have said the same thing. If XYZ person becomes the president, they will retire back to their farm or to Ghana or to somewhere else. Now, for you, such statement, how much does it hit the polity? That's good too. I'm going to ask you two questions, and I'd like you to take them again in one breath. How much does all of this statements hit the polity, especially for those who has a lot of followers. That's one. And then on the other hand, what personally, what category do you fall in? Do you fall in the people in the category of people who would say, regardless of whoever becomes the president, we are here and we are going to build Nigeria, or do you fall among the category that have called themselves the Japa movement?
Well, I cannot be dragged into any of those groups you are making reference to, because I expect that elders should not make such discouraging statements. Because it can mislead so many young people and it can set a very dangerous precedent. We look up to them as elders to guide us right and unite this country. So profiling is a very dangerous political attitude that can destroy any country. It was profiling that led to the genocide in Rwanda. So when you have people coming up to profile citizens and generalize, it's a very, very dangerous thing, which elders should disassociate themselves from it, and they should encourage young ones not to. When you profile a person and generalize his characters, you are declaring war against a group. For example, if I commit a crime and then you come up and said, oh, you can see what Taro people are doing. You have profiled Taro people. That statement is inciting. You are inciting the nation against the entire people of Taro. Meanwhile, I never consulted with them. And the proceeds of the crime is not going to be benefited by them. But you've instigated the country against them. So when you come out and profile a candidate, you are instigating hate against him. And that is not good at all. Every Nigerian is free to contest the presidency of Nigeria. The only thing we do in politics is we try to bring out your incompetencies. To say that, oh, you are incompetent to be a president because of A, B, C, D. That is how politics is done. But you don't profile a person and make definite statement. No, at all. They are not welcome in our polity. And I don't expect my leaders who are elder statements to be involved in. They should be able to domesticate their bitterness and show some maturity so that, we can have a united country.
All right. Even as we begin to round, one question keeps coming to my mind very quickly as our time is fast spent. Now, you are a politician. You've served in different capacity, different departments, and different ramifications, and you already have the crowd, the followers, the people who love you. So is there any intentions do you have any intentions to run for 2023 in any position at all, or are you being pressured or coerced maybe to declare anytime soon?
Well, every political leader in this country that is in politics for public service does not have a personal ambition. His ambition is determined by his people.
So your people have not determined your ambition?
So sometimes you may not be interested. Left for me, I would have preferred to be active in mobilizing and galvanizing support for better candidates. But I have also been invited by my people to contest. And they brought it with a caveat. They said, don't look at it as if we are bringing you down to a lower position. That is what we believe you should do for us.
So what position is that?
And so my people invited me to contest election into the House of Representatives.
Okay.
Our constituency is made of 2 local government, and our local government has never produced a member since 1999. And in fact, since 1959, we've not been able to produce a member. So they felt now they should drag me in.
Okay, so now you're one of those that have been pressured.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not pressured, because they came and they gave me convincing reasons which I saw fitting into my purpose of politics. Well, I'm into politics to serve.
Okay.
I'm not into politics for anything.
All right, so then very soon we should be seeing your flyers around then.
Yeah, maybe not to this way. The flyers will be in the constituency.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to be, I will not populate the national space with flyers, but
All right.
I will limit them to where they are relevant, while
right.
I will also be actively involved in the national space in giving my contribution to ensuring that the democratic experiment produce a much better leadership for Nigerians in 2023.
Thank you so much for your time with us, Barrister Solomon Dalung. It's always a pleasure having this talk with you.
Thank you, but you always emphasize you're a politician and a former minister. But I was also a former chairman of a local government and a lecturer in the university who has produced so many students. Some of them even have been governors in this country. And that is what that gives me joy more than any other public service that I've done. But
we already know that you have that part, but we just have to streamline it so that it doesn't look so boring.
To serve your purpose of the interview anyway.
All right. So we have been chatting with Barrister Solomon Dalung. He is the former minister at Federal Ministry of Youth and Sport. He is also a politician. He is a lecturer. He served in Nigerian prison services. He is many things plus more. And you've been watching us since we've been talking about the Nigerian prison service and elections here in Nigeria. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sure you must have been educated, rightly informed, and entertained. I will definitely see you next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.